Time for sound design. In this video, I'm going to sample a real instrument, in this case a Taishogoto, and turn it into a sampled instrument in Ableton Live. The Taishogoto is a Japanese harp. It's an electric harp. You strum it with one hand, and on the other hand you have kind of typewriter-style keys. This is very common in Japan, this instrument, and it's a beautiful tabletop device. This one is from Suzuki in a nice dark red color. It comes with a preamplifier, so you just plug in one cable and then directly record it into Ableton. And in this video, I'm going to sample one note from this instrument, put it into sampler, and at least create two patches with it. So what I want to do is I want to use in the instrument rack in Ableton, there is the macro parameters that you can assign, and then you can create variation, macro variation. So that way you can create two different patches with one sample. So that is kind of the goal of this video. So let me connect this instrument to Ableton and I will play around a little bit, experiment, and see if we can get some good sounds out of it. So as you can see, it's a bit difficult to get the entire Taishogoto into the shot. All the strings are tuned to a G. There's a tone control, volume control, and there's also a built-in tuner. So let's turn it on. So there are 4 strings and one kind of bass string. So I'm thinking to record a few sounds and then see what we can do with those sounds in Ableton. I recorded a few notes on different strings. Let's go to Ableton and see if we can use one. I like the lower notes better. There's some kind of high ring in the recording. I don't know how that is, where that came from. Maybe it's the preamp of the actual device. Maybe this is one that we can use. Let's put a high filter on 12,500 kilohertz. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so maybe it's this sample that we can use. So let's open a sampler and dump this sample into sampler. So let's put the release at 500. And let's see what we got. So first adjust the start and end points. Since all the strings of the Taishogoto are tuned to a G, we need to do something about that. Let's bring the volume down a bit. Let's crop this and let's put the root note on G, G3, actually G2, and detune maybe bit 2. So now when I play a C on the keyboard, you actually hear a C. And let's do some sound design. So let's put the sustain mode on forward backwards and add a bit of crossfade. So when we hold the key, we can sustain it. And this could actually be the first variation, to have a sustained sound. And then the second variation can be where we don't actually have any sustain. So it's just going to be a short, snappy sound. Let's put this sampler into an instrument rack so we can assign some macros. So the first macro would be to maybe the attack. And then the second one would be the sustain. There is this snapshot button, this kind of camera button, and that's the macro variation. So we can create a new variation and we call it sustained, and with these settings, so we have full sustain, no attack. And let's create a second variation that we can call snappy, where we put all the sustain all the way down, which means that if we hold the key, we never get to the loop section. It just fades out. But maybe it's nice to add some attack, so maybe like 150 milliseconds of attack. And then we save this, that's important. Now there's an asterisk, so it's not saved, but then if you click here, it's saved. Now we can switch between sustained. Let's add some release, 750. In order to make this a bit better, this sound, I'm going to add some delay, but only on the snappy one. And then I want it to be quite stereo spread. But on the sustained one, since it is kind of more a drone, we don't want that delay. Add a delay to this instrument rack. Maybe change the settings a bit, add some stereo spread. And then map the dry wet to macro number 3. Rename this to delay dry wet. So for the snappy, we want 50%. For the sustained one, we want 0. So no delay. And then maybe for this, so the snappy has a delay, the sustained one, we want some reverb. Let's add a reverb, increase the decay, and then map the dry wet of the reverb to macro number 4. And then for the sustained, we want 55. And for the snappy one, we want 0 reverb. So let's save that. The sustained has no delay and it has reverb. And since it's looping, you can just hold this as a drone, basically, infinitely. And if you don't like the start of the attack, you can either increase the attack time, or just, if you record this to audio, cut out the first part. And then the snappy sound is like this. Let's increase the feedback a bit of the delay. So now that we have these two variations, we only have used one sample, so one note from the Taishogoto, use different effects, different settings for the ADSR. We have two variations. Maybe it's fun to make a third variation that's even more snappy and short. So let's play around with that. Make this super snappy. And for this variation, we want even more delay, no attack. And maybe we want to have the decay parameter as well of the ADSR. So for the super snappy one, we want to decrease the decay. Maybe 750. Let's increase the complexity of this instrument a little bit more by using the filter only on the third variation and have an LFO modulate the filter. Let's add an LFO to modulate the filter cutoff frequency a bit slower and maybe not all the way. So maybe from 45 to 90. With quite a high resonance. And then we want to map the filter on off to macro number 6. So rename that to filter on off. And then for the third preset, the super snappy, the filter should be on. For the other ones, the filter is off. So yeah, that gives us 3 different patches with 1 sample, and as you can see, you can just continue adding variations and different settings. Important thing to keep in mind to actually save each variation before you move on, because otherwise you have to do it all over again. Let's play the 3 results. So the first one is the sustained one, where, as the name suggests, it is sustained, and that is by looping using the sustain mode. So it sounds like this. The second one, snappy, has the delay and has a lot of attack. You get that kind of reversey effect. It's better if you pitch it down than up. And then the last one, the super snappy. It kind of sounds like a wah-wah with the filter opening and closing. I think this is a good sound to have arpeggiated. And all these patches are made by sampling this Taishogoto from Suzuki. Just one note. You can of course go much more detailed and sample all the different strings and make a multi-sampled instrument. That's something maybe for another video. If you're interested in instruments that are made from samples, I have 2 sample packs over on Gumroad that you can download with sample instruments for Ableton Live, so go check that out. As always, thanks for watching, keep making music, and see you in the next one.